Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to walk through a really fascinating and honestly pretty chilling thought experiment. It's a model that shows how a simple biological problem could spiral into a complete societal collapse. We're going to trace a line straight from what's in our food to the rise of a new and much darker kind of world.
So it all kicks off with this one kind of crazy question. Could a widespread vitamin deficiency actually lead to war? I know, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but the chain of logic here is, well, it's disturbingly plausible.
All right, so the first domino to fall is a solid scientific fact. Your brain needs the right fuel to work properly. That's not a hot take, right? We all know this. But what happens when an entire population starts running on empty?
Well, the effects are really specific and really nasty. You see, a lack of niacin, that's B3, it can trigger paranoia and aggression. If you're low on B-complex vitamins, your memory and concentration just go out the window. Low vitamin C and D, that can lead to crippling apathy and depression. And look, we're not just talking about physical symptoms here. These are direct attacks on the very mental tools we need to have a functioning cooperative society.
This is the core idea. This isn't about a few people feeling unwell. It's about the collective ability of an entire society getting worn down. The fundamental skill of being able to trust each other, to plan ahead, to work together, it's being eroded from the inside out.
So, what happens when you ask millions of people, all suffering from impaired judgment, paranoia, and apathy, to play the incredibly complex game of society? Well, the rules of the game start to warp, and cooperation very quickly becomes a losing strategy.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we're going to introduce a key variable. We'll just call it D for the deficiency factor. Think of it as a score from 0 to 1. A 0 is a perfectly nourished, clear-thinking person. A 1 is someone who is just crippled by paranoia, confusion, and fatigue. This little d, this is the engine for the entire collapse we're about to see.
And the difference this makes is just night and day. A low D citizen, they can plan for the future, they can assess risks pretty accurately. But a high D citizen, they are trapped, they're paranoid, so they see betrayal around every corner. Their apathy forces them to only think about what they can get right now, and their confusion means they're constantly making costly mistakes.
You can see this play out perfectly in the prisoner's dilemma, which is a classic test of trust. Imagine two high-valued people. They might want to cooperate, but one of them makes a mistake, just a simple error, and it looks like they defected. The other person, following a simple tit-for-tat logic, has to retaliate, and that's it. That one mistake kicks off a death spiral of conflict. Now scale that up to millions of people, and society-wide trust becomes mathematically impossible.
We see the exact same problem in another classic game called the stag hunt. The idea is simple. If we all cooperate, we can hunt a stag, a huge reward for everyone. But if you go off on your own, you can catch a hare, a small but guaranteed reward. Now, look at the chart. For our paranoid high D citizen, the risk that someone else will mess up is just too high. So the only logical move is to always go for the sure thing, the hare.
And the end result of all this? You get a society that only hunts for hares. It can't build big things, it can't develop new technologies, it can't plan for the future. It's just permanently stuck in this state of day-to-day survival, which makes it incredibly fragile and totally vulnerable to the next crisis.
At this point, you're probably thinking, okay, but wouldn't the government just step in and fix this? And this is where the paradox kicks in. In a society with a high D factor, any attempt by the state to help can actually make things catastrophically worse.
So the government basically has two playbooks here. On one hand, you have supportive actions, right? Providing food, healthcare, things meant to lower that D factor. On the other hand, you have coercive actions, more policing, punishments, rules meant to force people to cooperate. Both of them seem perfectly reasonable, and both of them are going to fail spectacularly.
All right, so let's take strategy number 1, being supportive. The government shows up and offers help, but what does our high D citizen see? They see it through this filter of paranoia. A helping hand isn't help, it's an instrument of control. They don't see generosity, they see a trap, and so the aid gets rejected.
So you see the trap, right? Supportive strategies just get rejected, which makes the mistrust even deeper. So the state gets frustrated and it switches to plan B, coercion. But to this population, that's not law and order. That's an attack. It triggers a violent backlash. And every new ban or rule just empowers criminals in the black market.
This whole downward spiral of failed government creates a massive power vacuum. The state is weaker than ever, the population is broken, paranoid, and atomized. And stepping right into this chaos are new players. Organized, ruthless players who have figured out how to profit from all this dysfunction.
Okay, so the chessboard is set. We've got 3 players left. You have the state, which at this point is just trying to survive and contain the mess. You have the citizenry, where it's every person for themselves. And then you have the super defectors. And you have to understand, their goal isn't to fix the chaos. Their goal is to farm it for profit and power.
Their first move? It's the classic protection racket. They walk up to a terrified citizen and say, "Look, the state can't protect you. We can. You just have to pay us and we'll keep you safe. From us." And to a paranoid mind, that's a deal. It's a tangible offer of immediate safety, and it's terrifyingly effective.
Their second move is even smarter. They launch a war of legitimacy. They don't need to defeat the state's army. They just make it impossible for the state to govern. They pump out disinformation to make the paranoia even worse. They bribe officials to prove the system is corrupt, and they use just enough violence to remind everyone who's really in charge.
And what you end up with here, it isn't total anarchy. That's messy. It's unpredictable. No, what these super defectors create is something much more stable and much, much darker. It's a state of fractured sovereignty.
So the map of the nation doesn't look like a single country anymore. It's more like a patchwork quilt. You've got your green zones, where the old, weakened state is still clinging to power. Then you have red zones, which are basically mini fiefdoms run by these super defector warlords. And in between, you have the yellow zones, contested areas where ordinary people just live in constant fear, paying off whoever holds the gun that day. It's a stable, neo-feudal nightmare.
And that brings us to the really crushing conclusion of this whole model. The greatest tragedy isn't the broken government or the rise of warlords. The ultimate victory for the super defectors is when the world becomes so cognitively and spiritually broken that people can't even imagine a better way. They can't remember a time when society was built on trust. They have literally forgotten that hunting the stag together was ever even an option.